Hi everyone, this is Richard. Today we are going to talk about object-oriented programming. Dart is an object-oriented programming language. Everything in Dart is an object, and I'll explain that in just a little bit. Just for the record, object-oriented programming has always been very difficult for me. I have a hard time grasping it, and I think I got it. Maybe not 100%, but for the most part, I'll try to explain it. Wish me luck. The best way I can explain object-oriented program is that everything in Dart is an object. Now we have to define what an object is. Let me give you an example. Let's say, for example, you have a cake recipe. Okay, so we have a cake recipe. All right, having a hard time spelling it. Cake recipe. Let's say, for example, I have a cake recipe and you start asking me questions about it. What does the cake look like? What does it taste like? How big is it? What's the shape of it? Fundamental questions behind it. And I can't answer any of them because I really haven't made the cake. I just have an idea. I don't really know what it tastes like. I don't know anything about it. So in order for me to answer some of your questions, I actually have to make this cake. Turn it into a cake. Once I turn it into a cake, I can start doing things to it, right? I can taste it. I can cut it into pieces. I can tell you what the shape is, the color. I could give you all these details. But until I actually make it, I can't actually tell you anything. Now let's go back to Dart. I'm going to use optional, dynamic typing for right now because I'm going to change variables around. So bear with me, okay? I'm going to go with var a. So basically declaring the variable, right? I declare the variable, tell the computer, hey, here is a variable, and it is called a. Great. But what does that tell me about a? It tells me nothing, right? We know that it has the value of null, but that's it. That's the value of null, but we have no characteristics to a at all whatsoever. So we initialize it. We initialize it by, say, hello, how are you? So we initialize it, we give it a value. We actually created an object. We actually created a thing. Do you remember in a previous video, I did this? So prin autocomplete, which is again control space, and print, and it says object right there. Basically, it's saying you put an object here, and in this circumstance, the object is a. We gave it a value, and it is a thing now. Now that it is a thing, an object, okay, I like the term thing. I don't know why, that's just me. Now that it is a thing, we can start asking questions about it and getting some answers. Print a, and how we do it is we use what we call a method. How we use a method is a dot, the object. The other term for this is an instance. Object, instance, those are all things in my mind in Dart. And those are objects or things which you can do other things with them. So a dot, and it calls basically a method. A method actually, let's do control space to see what options we have. Classical example is length. This is the standard syntax. Object, dot, and this is called the method. The method acts upon, the method is on the right side of the dot, on the left side is the object. So the method acts upon the left side. And what this says is, what is the length of the string, which is this particular object? Let's run it and see. It's 20. So this is 20 characters long. And you can ask a bunch of other things about it because you actually created the object. Is empty. Now let's read this. Is empty returns a bool. And this is what we call returns. So anything you ask, you are expected something in return. If you ask me, what does the cake taste like? You're expecting an answer. Good, bad, sweet, sour, whatever it is. This is the same thing. It's not always the case, and we'll review that in the future videos, but this particular one, in this particular situation, I think every single one of these returns something. Here, is empty returns bool. So it either says true or false. So A, the value, is that empty? False, because there is actually a value there. What if we delete all this completely? Is empty should be true. It is true because there is no value. What if we delete this altogether? We don't give it a value. We declare it, but we do not initialize it. It gives you an error. Again, remember, not giving it any value makes it null. It makes it not even an object. So let's give you a value again. So I hope that's clear. Let's go a couple of steps further. So is empty, again, this leads to false. You can actually go further because what happens? A is the object, is empty is the method, and it returns another object. So false is actually an object because remember, everything in Dart is an object. So it returns a thing. Now we have false, we can do something with it. Let's change that to a string. Because remember, a bool is true or false. That's not the text of FALSE. That's basically a yes or no, true or false value. We will change that into the words false. It stays the same thing. We could keep going. How about if we get the length of that? How about if we get the is infinite, and how about if we get the runtime type? So remember, everything to the right refers to the object to the left. And it does not skip over. So A is the object, hello, period, how are you? Is empty, is that empty? False. Change that into a string, text FALSE. The length of that is F1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that infinite? False. Runtime type, bool. So notice every single time it refers to the value, it refers to the object immediately to the left of it on the dots. It never skips. So runtime type does not go to the length. It always is the one on the left itself. So this should be, I think we said it was false. I mean bool. I'm sorry. Runtime type is bool because is infinite returns a bool. Runtime type is a bool. So you could keep going out on and on and on if you want to. Play around with this. Really experiment. Take a look. Get familiar with many of these things. We're not going to go into too much details, but it's something that you really should be familiar with, and it's easy to do yourself, and you learn more by doing it yourself also. All right. So let's change this into a integer. Now we change it into an integer. You can also do the same thing for float, for anything else. Play around with it. Dot, again, it's an object, but it's an integer object. So you really can't ask an integer what its length is, right? Because that doesn't make much sense. There's no text in there. But you can ask it a few things. Is infinite? Is this number infinite? Should be false, right? How do you get infinite? Easiest way, 1 divided by 0. Is infinite? True. True. You can get 0 divided by 0. False. What is 0 divided by 0? 0 divided by 0 is NaN. So I ask, is this not a number, NaN, and that will return bool, either a true or a false. Not a number is kind of an interesting thing. It's not a number. It doesn't tell you what it is. It just says it's not a number. 0 divided by 0 is not a number. It's not a value. It's kind of an undefined thing. You just can't do it, so just don't do it. And that's true. There are other things that are not a number, but in Dart, I really don't know which ones, which values, how you get there. But if in certain circumstances you need to ask it, that's what happens. But if it's a text, that doesn't mean it's not a number. It has to be some previous integer, at least I think. I'm pretty sure about that. So keep this in mind. Syntax again. Method refers to the object directly to the left. Play around with it, whether it's a string, integer, bool, and We will go in the next video talking about lists and how we can add upon our knowledge of object-oriented programming. I hope that was helpful. Thank you.